Alright guys, it's the last working day of this week. You've done so fantastic to be here at the end of week 3. I'm really proud of you all for sticking with this. This is fantastic and you should be incredibly proud of yourselves as well. It is no small feat to stick to an exercise program for 3 weeks, trust me, and you are doing really well. So keep doing this, you're making that habit, you're making that good stuff. This is awesome, this is fantastic. And, you know, just to make things better, it's core day. Everyone loves abs. Sort of. You're going to love it. It's going to be a fantastic day. And yeah, let's just crack straight into it. Make sure you're warmed up, make sure you've got your water, and let's crack on with this. My level 1s, essentially we're going to be starting with some warm-up core moves. I've chosen the overhead side bend and overhead bend for these, so going side to side and hinging at the hips, going forward and back. This gets everything going right at the start, and you need to make sure that you're keeping your back straight or as neutral as possible for yourself for these moves. Especially for the overhead bend, ensure that your movement comes from your hips and not from your back. That will make a lot of difference to how you perform this move and how your core is done, so make sure you're bracing essentially. Next, drop to a lunge for overhead lunge twist. This is a really good movement, one of the best in the game. It isolates your core very well. The hold works the shoulders too. It's a great all-rounder. Just make sure you are moving from your abdominals. Next, recover with the overhead arm spin. Now this movement is actually generated from both your shoulders and like the top part of your core as well, so it fits as a sort of active recovery here. It's not too stressful on you, and a lot of people say it's a good stretch too, so good to have in the middle. Now we've got 3 mini games in a row. Core crushing, bank balance and smack back. These 3 mini games use the core in different ways. You know core crushing and smack back already, but you have bank balance now as well, where you're pushing the ring into your stomach, so doing an abdominal press with the ring whilst also moving your legs. It's kind of some alternate work which challenges your body in a different way, and I thought it would be a very good one to introduce here. Now make sure you complete them, try and beat your scores, all the good stuff. Now go for open closed leg raise, working with the abduction and adduction of your hips. Now if you need to lie your entire upper body on the ground, do it, because as long as you're moving the legs from the hips, that's the important thing. Now we finish with 2 fast moves. You get into the same position for both of these, seated ring raise and Russian twist. It's a great duo and it's just different arm movements essentially. Concentrate on good full movements. It's not speed here that we want, it's good full control and range in order to get the best abdominal work here. Now repeat this playlist if you'd like as well, see how fatigued you are, okay? My level 2s, we're going to finish this week strong. Start with the sport and highway jogging area if you have it unlocked, but if you don't worry, go for beginner. It's more to do with the jogging and warm-up rather than anything else, but the sport and highway has some ab work too. Next, we have the pendulum bend for the work with the hips and the shoulder. The overhead lunge twist is great for a workout on the obliques in the transverse plane too. Twist at the core, keep the hips still as best as possible. Next, play around with smack back. I recommend advanced because you get additional speed precision needed, and it's really fun as well, especially when the gold robot comes out, but feel free to choose whichever level you need. Next, we want to do a couple of supersets. So perform knee to chest and seated ring raise with as little rest as possible. The seated position will work the rectus abdominis very well as well. Now rest for a minute or 2 and then do leg raise and open close leg raise. The body position is the same, but we're using hip flexion for the leg raise and then side movements with hip abduction and adduction. Rest again for a minute to 2 minutes and then finish with flutter kick and leg scissors. This is similar in theory to the previous 2 moves, but it's a lot faster. So keep your breathing steady when doing these moves, because they'll be hard to maintain at a pace. Rest up, and if you want to repeat, go for another round, maybe 2, see how fatigued you're feeling. My level 3s, we've got a tough session for you today. I've thrown in a couple of supersets as well as a really difficult move, so just make sure you're paying attention. Start with a knee lift to get things moving. Make sure you're bracing your core to activate it, and it will warm up pretty well as well. It's an efficient warm up move in general, which is why I keep suggesting it, you may have noticed. We'll then drop to the floor for the knee to chest. Now, you don't need to do this one super strict, you need to do this in a relaxed fashion, because this one is more about getting your core working, getting your hips as warm as possible in that position for later. We're then going to go into the overhead lunge twist. Its twisting movement works your core very well whilst having that isometric hold with the legs. It is full body, but it's focused on your core. Now drop to the floor for a superset of seated ring raise and Russian twist. Perform both with good speed and control with as little rest as possible between the moves. This works well in the multiple planes of movement, which is fantastic. Now rest for 2 minutes. Do the overhead hip shake for active recovery. It's a good method of working your hips, and it feels sassy as well, which is really cool. Now we've got this big move. You're going to try boat pose. Take a seated position, bring your knees up and put the ring out in front of you. Then slowly unfurl your body. Move the legs out straight whilst leaning backwards and moving your arms over the head at the same time. There's a lot going on here. Tips examples pretty good for learning how to do it, but it is quite difficult mechanically. I do know this, so take it slow. Don't overstretch. If you can't perform it well or you're worried, do the knee to chest instead, okay? Because that's basically a regression of this, and I'd rather you do that than create injury. Next, superset leg scissors and flutter kick. Use abduction and adduction for the leg scissors and hip flexion for flutter kick. Perform them with as little rest as possible, rest up for 2 minutes later, and then we're going to finish with a seated movement for seated forward press. Now, get your legs out within the range of motion that you can, similar to what we did on flexibility day, and then press forward for abdominal benefits. Repeat the whole thing if you're up to it. I recommend at least one repeat, but if not, no worries. Good work, everyone. You've beaten the ab workout, you've beaten this week, you're done. You've got a nice rest day tomorrow, which is fantastic. I think you've done really well to stick with this, as I said at the start of the episode video. You're building this into a habit, you're building this into your routine, which is one of the hardest things. And yeah, that's fantastic. So, good on you, good on you. So let's do today's Fit Fact. It's a bit of a short and interesting one. It's actually to do with the 3 muscle types that we have. Now, when we think of muscles, what you're thinking of is like your biceps, your quads, your glutes, your tensor fasciae latae. You're thinking of all of these different ones, sternocleidomastoid. You're thinking of all of these different ones. You're thinking of the superficial ones. These are skeletal muscles. Skeletal muscles attach to the bone via tendons, not ligaments. Ligaments are bone to bone, whereas tendons are muscle to bone. Okay, cool. Now this allows you to move the skeleton around. It allows you to move. That's what these muscles are there for. So what are the other types of muscle, you may be wondering? Okay, cool. So you have smooth muscle. Smooth muscle is kind of like a hollow muscle, which is used kind of on the internal organs, so like your stomach, it's used in your capillaries, it's used in your veins and arteries as well, and your intestines is a great example too. So it's involuntary muscle. Now, involuntary meaning that it's going to function whether you actively make it or not. So you don't have to worry about it. It's still going to work, or hopefully it is. If it stops working, then you're in trouble. Then the other type of muscle you have is the cardiac muscle, i.e. the heart, the ticker, the old boomer, and it just functions on its own unless you have cardiac arrest, which is cardiac muscle stopping, and you're in trouble. So yeah, basically, if any of your involuntary muscles stop working, you're in trouble, and you've got your voluntary muscle, which is your skeletal muscle. 3 types of muscle. Thanks for listening to me ramble on about all of that. I hope you've had a really good day. I hope you're really enjoying the program. Leave me a message if you want in the comments, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. I've been pretty busy recently, so I am trying to keep up with the comments. I'm sorry it's not as smooth as it was earlier, but look, just thank you so much, and yeah, have a lovely day. I will see you tomorrow for a nice rest.